Hi, parents. It's Robbin McManne here. Thank you for listening to Parenting Our Future, which is in the top 0.5% of all podcasts worldwide. Before we dive into this episode, I want to invite you to join my membership site, the Parent Toolbox. You can join this membership for free. It's at www.parent-toolbox.com. And this is the companion site to my show, Parenting Our Future. In the Parent Toolbox, you will find game-changing tools and resources from both myself and my guest experts who are among some of the top minds in the parenting space. There are over 100 resources to help you navigate screen time, co-parenting, meltdown, teenagers, and so much more. Join today at www.parent-toolbox.com. Now back to the show. There are so many parents that I work with that have kids with ADHD, and it's no joke. It is really difficult to parent a kid with ADHD, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and it can be just really hard on us. And so I am welcoming back a guest and expert in ADHD, Donna Kay. She is a board-certified holistic health and nutrition practitioner, 2 times international best-selling author, and the CEO and founder of ADHD Thrive Institute, which I am a huge, huge fan of. As a mother of a child with ADHD, she knows firsthand the struggles that come with parenting a neurodiverse child and the freedom that is possible once parents learn to reduce ADHD symptoms. Donna has been featured in Forbes and Authority magazine and on Medium, Influensive, Thrive Global, and various other online media. She has also been a guest at multiple parenting and ADHD summits and her podcasts. Her mission is to help families reduce ADHD symptoms naturally so that children with ADHD can thrive at home, at school, and in life. I'm so happy to have you here again. As a mom with a kiddo who's got pretty serious ADHD, I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing and for being here again.
Thank you so much, Robbin. I'm so excited to be back and was really happy that you wanted to have me back on your podcast.
I really, really did. And I just think, the more we know, the better we are. And look, I want to provide solutions for people. Take it, I hope that they take it or leave it, but it's here. And I'll tell you, as a parent of a child with ADHD, it just is, it's hard. And if we can reduce those symptoms a little bit, and look, if you didn't listen to our last episode, we really talked a lot about diet and nutrition, the relationship to the gut brain and all that kind of stuff. And you gave us some really great information on that. We have a guide for easy breakfast for kids with ADHD. We talked about reducing and eliminating foods like gluten, soy, and dairy. And so that episode, I'll put the link in the show notes so you know which episode to go to for our previous conversation. But today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to kind of move on from the nutrition part. We're going to talk about technology and different things like that. But we're going to start off by talking about inflammation. And really, inflammation is really the root of all disease, is it not?
Definitely. And I love this topic so much. I feel that inflammation is one of the biggest hidden stressors to our child's body, their brain, and is definitely exacerbating the ADHD symptoms. And so really, we talked about a lot about diet, and that is one way that you can reduce inflammation in the body. And so I really want to talk a lot today about other things that families can do, because it's not just about diet. Yes, diet is the foundation of everything. If you don't have a solid foundation, your house is not going to be very strong. Same way with our body. But really, chronic inflammation has become so prevalent over the years, and it's linked to a number of diseases. As you said, it's not just ADHD. So if mum at home has brain fog, if mum at home has anxiety, guess what? It's probably being driven and making worse by inflammation. You know, inflammation is essential in our body. It's responsible for healing, wound healing, getting better. But chronic inflammation can wreak havoc on our whole body. But, the good news is there are ways to reduce that chronic inflammation by making lifestyle changes. And the World Health Organization ranks chronic inflammation as one of the top causes of and contributors to disease today, which is really, really, shocking. So when I think of inflammation, and I kind of like to use this analogy as I talk about a bucket. I don't know if I mentioned it to you last time. Do you remember? You did. And I think, look, I'll just quickly go over it again,
please do.
Because I think that very much it ties into moving on to the other topics that we're going to talk about today. But we're all born with a bucket, and the goal through life is to keep the load on the bucket as low as possible. And some of us are born with amazing genes, and so we can empty that bucket out really, really easy out of our body, whereas other people can't, and because they've got compromised detoxification pathways. And so what happens with those people is the load on that bucket, whether it be poor diet, we're going to talk about technology, toxin exposure, EMF exposure, medication, that all gets higher and higher and higher. And if we can't empty our bucket out effectively out of our body, that's going to get so high, it's going to tip over into our body. And that's when symptoms and disease come out. And so we've talked about diet. That's one of the key ways to reduce inflammation or load on your bucket. But let's dive into a couple of other ones. And you mentioned technology. And I think technology is so prevalent today, especially with our kids. And there's no denying that we need technology in our life. The way that it's reached our children and the way it impacts our children, it does bring, though, a unique set of challenges. And I just want to list a couple of statistics on technology for you, because I think it's really, really interesting to sort of look at how much it's grown. Because I know as children, I never had this much technology. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have access to, I think we had one of our first computers was a Commodore 64 that was connected to the TV. I don't know if you remember that one out there.
Yeah. Look, I remember getting up and changing the channel on the TV.
I do too. I remember our big box wooden television. My gosh, I love it. The memories.
Yes.
But today, 96% of Americans have a TV, okay? 94% of children aged between the ages of 3 and 18 have internet access either through a computer or a smartphone. 30% of children in the United States play with mobile devices while still in diapers. 53% of children have a smartphone by the time they're 11.
Whoa. Okay. So 94% of kids, and that makes sense, have access to the internet. 94% of kids in the US.
Yeah. So I'm looking at US stats because that's where I live.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Your accent says otherwise, but
I know.
Okay. And then 30% of children are playing with mobile devices while in diapers. In other words, they're babies, right? Yeah. And then you said, what was the last stat that you just said?
So 53% of children have a smartphone by the time they're 11.
Yeah.
But I think, listen to this one. High school students spend 8 to 11 hours each day with digital technology.
Yeah. I definitely can see that.
Yeah.
So
look, screens are part of our kids' lives. And look, in my opinion, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But if it's left unsupervised and unlimited, it can turn into a bad thing. And so it's really important for parents to be mindful of how their children use technology and the potential effects, both positive and negative.
Yeah. And look, technology is a part of the way we are moving through this world now.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that my youngest son has never seen a screen he didn't like he, grew up in our family when we first got our first big screen TV, right? And it was before we mounted it on the wall. It was on a TV stand. So, it was kind of close. It was sort of eye level, this giant screen. And like, he's never seen one he doesn't like. And I will say that one thing, knowing now what I know, and it's changing every day, every minute, is to wait as long as humanly possible to get your kid a device, to give your kid a device. And so I am all about understanding the pros, understanding the cons, and having solutions. And so that's what I like about what we're going to talk about. So let's just go into the cons. Let's do the cons first and then the pros. But I want our listeners to know that we're not just going to vilify it, because that doesn't
100%.
help anyone. It doesn't help anyone. We just need to go in fully aware. And look, I've had lots of episodes on technology and all that kind of stuff, but we're looking at this through the lens of an ADHD child. So, so keep that in mind as you listen on. So yeah, let's talk about the negative effects first.
Yeah, look, it can have that negative effect on our children, but if we're aware of them, we can be proactive about it. Social skills, okay? With the increased use of technology, children might not be sort of adequately developing their social skills. And kids with ADHD in particular are like 2 to 3 years behind their peers in social skills. So adding that layer to it, adding that technology to it can actually make it worse. And it can lead to children becoming like socially awkward or withdrawn, shy or intimidated by social situations. And, they may not know how to sort of engage with other children or adults. And so it's really important that we help them develop those social skills because it takes practice. It's not just an instinctual thing. And if technology is getting in the way, it's, presenting fewer of those opportunities for the kids to develop these skills, and knowing that kids with ADHD are that far behind their peers, it's important we take that into consideration. And,
and you add on the pandemic and look, we can't ignore that. We can't ignore that things have gotten a lot worse since and because of.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And like I know even in my family during the pandemic, I'm a full-time working mum. My husband's a full-time working dad. Even though we were at home, my kids, they were obviously doing online school, but when I was working, what else was there to do with them but to put them on screens? And so, they lost a lot of that time, that ability, and that opportunity to build those social skills. So it's important that we're aware of that. And that really does feed into relationships as well. Relationships can suffer as a result of that technology. Kids are alone when they're doing technology, and then they lose the desire to engage with us as parents or even their friends outside of the internet. And, there's this virtual reality that's going on. And so devices are actually sometimes more appealing or even entertaining than playing with their friends on the street, because they're like, wow, I'm in this virtual reality and this is better than them riding a bike on the street, especially as you get older kids. I mean, my son's 13, my older son's 13 now, and the last thing he wants to do is like go out and play in the street. So, we have to be aware that the social skills then feed into those relationships. And we all know that relationships are critical to our mood, our behavior, and our well-being. So again, being aware of that. Now, I talked a lot about inflammation, and one of those side effects or the negative impacts, especially for our kids that are already compromised, is technology, because it can really influence the child's developing brain and problem-solving skills, which for most kids with ADHD is already, there's already a deficit there that we know of. And the child might be relying on a device to solve problems for them rather than using the brain connections to work through the problem and find the solution. And so I think that it's really important to give them every opportunity to really activate that brain, activate that frontal lobe, that planning, that organizing, problem solving. And unfortunately, technology hinders that. I know my younger son, I heard him yesterday, actually. He goes onto his iPad and he presses the speak button rather than even typing, the question into Google. He goes, I can't even remember what he asked, but he doesn't even type it. He's like shortcutting everything. But look, that's not the only sort of health problem relating to the brain that can come from it. You think about how much less exercise these kids are doing. Exercise is the number one best thing you can do for a kid with ADHD. Okay. It is so highly researched. It, reduces inflammation in the body. It burns off energy. It helps with detoxification. And so if our kids aren't exercising, whether they have ADHD or not, all of these other health problems that could come from it. Look, then we've got the blue light that comes from devices. I don't know if you or your listeners have heard of that blue light, but especially if the kids use that before bedtime, this can lead to sleep issues, sleep quality, affecting their overall well-being and their immune system. Like, you think about what our body has to do while we're asleep in renew, restore the cells in our body, detoxify. If we're affecting sleep by the blue light from the technology, then our body's not able to do what it needs to do. And then finally, before we go on, I think this one really ties in with ADHD, but it can affect the ability to focus. And so children who spend a lot of time on devices have been shown to have a reduced attention span and the ability to focus due to the reliance on technology to pay attention for them. This is evident not only in the classrooms, where teachers are seeing that shorter attention span, so they're opting for shorter lessons to accommodate that. You look at TikTok and Instagram Reels these days, it's literally flip, 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 flip. And that's promoting that short attention span. And then kids with ADHD already have that short attention span. Why bring in something that can actually make it worse?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting. I do notice my oldest, who has ADHD, how it's hard to even have a conversation with him. I'm like, where do you have to go? What are you gonna do, bud? Like, you got like, school's over. It's home time now. You're not working. Like, can we just have a conversation? Like, and it's really tough for him. So, okay. So negative, then we're going to move into positive. Negative is social skills not developing. And they're already 2 to 3 years behind peers. So this could make it even long. And I see that. I really do see that. It influences the developing brain and impacts problem solving skills, because that prefrontal cortex is the last part of the brain to grow and come online and then fully finish growing. They're getting less exercise. And you said that's the number one best thing for kids with ADHD. I mean, exercise is so important in general. Blue light creates sleep issues and overall well-being. And then the ability to focus is reduced as well. And I look at my kids playing games online, and I see it how it's the perfect storm, how especially for boys, I'll speak just for my boys, nobody else's, but they are action orientated games that have a clear mission, that are kind of sort of quick to achieve, so they get that sort of boost of dopamine accomplishment. And they don't need to factor in the social stuff, and they can, if things get too tough, they can quit, they can leave. And so it doesn't mimic real life at all. And it can be highly toxic. Like, I hear the way sometimes my kids talk, I'm like, whoa, like, no, just because they talk that way doesn't mean it's okay for you to talk that way, So Yeah. So I hear what you're saying and I see what you're saying in my own home. So
yeah. And I do too. And
yeah.
look, we can never blame ourselves as parents. This is the world that we live in today.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important to feed yourself with information, and then you do what's best for your family. And so like I can tell you, there are days that my kids do spend too much time on technology devices, and we pay for it later because they are less emotionally regulated. They're frustrated. And, the other thing that I didn't sort of even talk about, especially with my 9-year-old who's younger, the dangers of browsing. There's so much information available on the internet, and sometimes it's really difficult for us to monitor what our kids are exposed to, just like you said with the language, okay? Or even inappropriate interactions with other people. I know my oldest son, one of the games, he's, a teenager now, one of the games he plays, he's talking to the people that they're playing with online, and they're people that we don't even know.
I know.
And that in itself is a little bit scary.
Yeah. Well, and look, I have lots of episodes dedicated to, online safety and all of that stuff, because at the end of the day, a device is a portal to predators, pornography, and unfortunately a lot of bad stuff. And so we just have to know that and address that with our eyes wide open, and lean on some of the experts that, I've been able to bring, and other experts that are out there as well, who really research this and study this,
Yes, definitely.
So, okay, let's talk about the pros. There's got to be some pros.
Yes, there are many ways that technology can positively impact our lives, and those of our children and those with ADHD. But, it all depends on how it's being used. I mean, one of the biggest things that can help kids with ADHD and adults with ADHD and anyone without ADHD basically is organization, because it can really be beneficial to organization and planning. And as we know, you said that prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe, that is compromised in people with ADHD. And so, you can help with that by bringing on online calendars to make sure that everything's easily to stay updated and everyone knows what everyone's doing at any particular time. Group text messaging is also really convenient for sort of streamlining communication and keeping everyone in the loop. Sorry about that. In the loop. Things like budgeting for adults, things like that can help with that. Teach children about money management, but also there's these organization apps now that you can put your child's morning routine on, and it's like a game. It gamifies it, where once they do it, they can click the button on the app, and when they've done it, they reach their goal. And so that's super, super amazing. The other thing which we didn't have was research. The internet provides so much information and resources to help children learn about different topics. I remember having a bookcase in my house with encyclopedia books from it was the trophy of our house. If you had a complete encyclopedia set, you made it.
Rich.
Yes, you were. Isn't that funny? Oh my God.
I remember how like having an encyclopedia salesperson come to our house, sell my parents on encyclopedias, Encyclopedia Britannica, and that and my parents were like, we're really investing in you and your sister, in your future and your education. Yeah. And so I don't know where those encyclopedias are now.
Oh my God. I have no idea, but ours were brown with gold writing, and they were beautiful, and they smelt beautiful as well.
It was so cool. I know. Oh, let's reminisce some more about big ugly TVs and encyclopedias. and the
Love
whole
it.
thing. And there was like sets and sets of encyclopedias in our high school library because we'd
Yes,
all go and you'd have to have
exactly.
more than one. Yeah.
But you think about that, we had the same set for so many years. I am sure there needed to be updates on the changes in the world to those encyclopedias.
Yes.
But think about it now, they can just go onto the internet and they can research a topic for school projects, or researching areas that they find interesting. And it can also be like a teachable moment by showing children how to sift through information from reliable sources as well. So, there are definitely those positives, when we bring it back to relationships and things like that. But technology can promote bonding and community as well. It can foster connection by allowing kids to stay in touch with family members or friends that don't live close by. It actually helped with that building of that bonding and that community during COVID because they were actually still able to connect, but over a screen. Yes, it's not the best way to connect. However, it did help facilitate that. And I know when I walk into my son's room most of the days, I'm now in a room with 10 other kids online, and we've been talking, and I've got to be careful. But it is amazing that even if they can't get out of the house, if it's raining, especially here in Seattle, and I'm sure where you are too, Robbin, that, where the weather is not the nicest most of the year, except for in summer. And so they are inside a lot, but that can really, foster that bonding and that community, which leads into their self-expression because you can learn how to share thoughts online. It's a powerful tool to build confidence. They can learn how to, connect with others and be exposed to other viewpoints or perspectives. So even though we have those negatives, there are those positives, but, it really is about the balance. I think the biggest one is really it allows them to be creative and explore their interests in many ways. And it fosters so many different learning skills that we could never get as a child, with various apps at different ages. They can even learn how to play an instrument. They can learn how to do creative writing or art projects. And so it does help foster that creativity.
You can learn how to fix things. I have a neighbor whose son was just looking at YouTube to fix his own car. He, didn't even know he's a teenager. He's 17. So And look, I think too, that this also has opened up a world of opportunities in terms of future jobs and careers that haven't been invented yet. And I think that's a really positive thing that, also creativity is going to be commodity that is rare and is
big
highly
time.
sought after, right? Because we have AI. I mean, we weren't even talking about that the last time you and I talked about it. That's how fast things are going. So you're right. Like when you think about those Encyclopedia Britannicas or whatever it is, the brand that you had, like they did, the amount of information that's changing every single day is staggering. And to keep up to all of that is a bit overwhelming for parents, never mind everybody else. Right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I never thought I'd be the parent that would be like, oh, I didn't have that when I was a child, but I am that parent now. And my son, even though I'm not a baby boomer, my son calls me, oh, you're a boomer. And I'm like, well, what's a boomer to you? And he's like, oh, just an old person. I'm like, I'm 43. Okay. So I'm basically old.
And I feel like I did when I was 17. So like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Who's he seeing? Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. I feel like the same person inside. I just am getting older on the outside, but
exactly. I do too. It's bizarre. I still feel like I'm in my 20s and that I still look in my 20s.
Great. I wouldn't have said 43. I would have said 33. So there.
Yes.
Don't guess my age. You mentioned EMF.
Yeah.
let's talk about that. And then I want to kind of go into strategies to strike a balance.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Look, when we talked about inflammation and that technology can sometimes exacerbate that inflammation, EMF exposure can come from technology as well. And so that in itself is exacerbating inflammation. And a lot of people don't know what it is, but, basically EMF stands for electromagnetic fields. And some of the information may seem a little bit shocking or extreme, but I think awareness, as I said, for everything is the key. And reducing the exposure to EMF is just, even if we just do it in a small amount, it will help our kiddos. It will help reduce ADHD symptoms. It will help reduce inflammation in anyone's body that causes disease. But it's estimated about 3 to 8% of populations in developed countries experience serious electrohypersensitivity symptoms, while 35% actually experience mild symptoms. And it also is one of the lead. There's a doctor out of Switzerland that believes that electromagnetic loads lead to cancer, concentration problems, ADHD, migraines, insomnia, Parkinson's, and even back pain. And look, for me, it's all about the bucket. Bring it back to the bucket. I don't think that is the only thing that causes that. We are exposed to it on a daily basis, but it's really about the load that we put on the bucket. Some people actually find, and I don't know if you've heard of this, but I know many people that have had this problem. Just walking into a coffee shop that is Wi-Fi enabled can trigger symptoms like a headache or fatigue or nausea or burning or itchy skin. And so you think about that, that's extreme. That's going to be 3 to 8% of the population. But if 35% of us are experiencing mild things that we probably just don't put to EMS, then that's something to sort of pay attention to. Now, it really, there was, this one really got me, I think. On May 21st, 2011, there was the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is the IARC. It's a committee of 27 scientists from 14 different countries across the world, and they work on behalf of the World Health Organization. So, it's a legit organization. It's not some hoo-ha out there. But they concluded that exposure to cell phone radiation is a possible carcinogen, and classified it to the 2B category, which is the same category as pesticides, lead, gasoline, burning coal, and dry cleaning chemicals, just to name a few. So a possible carcinogen means it can cause cancer. So, and there was actually a case that went before the judge. There was a cluster of cancer cases among children at an elementary school in California. And basically it was talking about the cell phone tower that was right near it. In 2006, a kid aged 10, his name was Kyle, he was diagnosed with kidney cancer. 5 months later, his classmate was diagnosed with brain cancer. That year, 2 more children at the school received cancer diagnoses. 3 teachers have been diagnosed with various forms of cancer since that started, along with 2 preschool-age kids that live near the school, and a former student was diagnosed with brain cancer at the age of 22. So that was like this cluster of cancer cases right next to that electromagnetic tower, that cell phone tower. And the parents of 2 of the kids, they had tests to try and see the level of radiation that was coming from that tower. So it's a little bit complicated, but they actually ended up winning the case against that the government on that area. So it is one of those things that you want to look into. It is classified as that possible carcinogen. You think, okay, well, what's cancer? Cancer comes from inflammation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to, and so when we're using so much technology, EMFs come from electric fields, okay? And they come from wireless communications. So wireless power meters, wireless internet, those towers that we're talking about. It also comes from magnetic fields, okay? And 5G, if you think about the cell phone, unlike 4G technology, which is currently still in use, 5G relies on 90-foot cell towers with about a dozen antenna ports on each. Okay, and so that 5G is actually contributing to more of this EMF exposure. So it's not about there's no point in going into too much detail about it. For me, it's about being aware of like, okay, it can cause cancer, it can cause inflammation in our body, but what can we do to reduce that exposure? And it's like anything, it's going to increase that inflammation or that load on the bucket. And the laptops are a big part of that. If you're using a laptop, putting it on your lap,
actual lap,
is probably not as safe. So if you are using it, just put it on a pillow or put it on a desk where it's not touching your skin. Watch out for Wi-Fi, connect your desktop to one of those wired cables. Make sure you turn your Wi-Fi off at night when you're sleeping, because again, as I said, renewing your cells, restoring the body, detoxing, all of that stuff happens when you're asleep. So simple thing of turning off the Wi-Fi router at nighttime will definitely help with that. Again, limiting electricity, because that does come from EMF exposure. So turning off that electricity near your bed. I know in the past, I used to have these power boards that were like stacked with so many different things all plugged in right underneath my bed.
Right by your head, probably, right?
Right, but exactly. And, kids with ADHD, you don't want things that are buzzing their brain while they're sleeping, while they're healing, while they're renewing. So you can actually buy these EMF detectors that can actually determine the level of EMFs at any given point in your house. And sometimes that's just as easy to go, okay, well, I can see there's a huge load near my bed. Let's rectify that. Just take all these little steps. It's not about going, oh my gosh, EMFs cause cancer. I've got to live in the woods and not do anything, but it's just being aware. And so really reducing technology also reduces exposure to EMFs, which reduces inflammation, which reduces ADHD symptoms. So just little 1-2 strategies here every now and again, and you'll turn around and you start reducing that toxic load on the body.
And I think, what you're saying is just controlling what you can control. Right.
Exactly.
Controlling what you can control, and being a bit intentional about, what your actions are to limit it. Because at the end of the day, it's for everybody's overall health. And look, if your child has got severe ADHD symptoms, I guarantee you, you want that to stop. And so if that means your charger is in the kitchen instead of beside your head in bed, then that's definitely,
and that's an easy change.
I'm wearing a watch that is a Wi-Fi. Yeah, my phone is always beside me. I've got 3 screens in front of me right now. I've got right. So there's lots. I hear what you're saying. And so, turning off Wi-Fi, limiting electricity. I was going to ask you if electromagnetic fields, EMF, is electric. How is that different from electricity versus?
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not. It's part of it as well. Like anything that has voltage, basically anything electric, like a lamp, and electrical wiring, outlets, extension cords, have an EMF. They'll all have ranging differences, and that's why sometimes it's actually even good to get an EMF meter, and you can buy them pretty cheaply. And so just making sure that either where you spend the majority of your day or where you're sleeping is reduced is the most important. We're not going to be able to avoid it completely. We talked about toxins in the past and diet. It's really, really important. But, everything is really about reducing that load on that bucket, and just being a little bit proactive about that.
Well, this is great. And, thank you for explaining it and for giving us some, statistics as well as really some strategies, because I think that's really what we're all looking for. And I
Yeah.
want to point out that you have, in addition to what we talked about before, what we talked about today, is 5 natural supplements for ADHD in kids. And so you have a guide that you can download from the Parent Toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about things like fish oils and probiotics and, magnesium, just to name a few. And what I really love about you, I'm always wary, to be honest, about buying vitamins, because my dad used to be in the vitamin business. He'd always say that, the quality is hit and miss with what you get at the store. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And so you give, you give brand names, and I know you enough to know that you don't mess around with this stuff. So
Nope.
what you recommend is good quality, pharmaceutical
100%.
grade.
Yes.
Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I will say that supplements are not created equal. Never buy a
No.
supplement from Costco. Sorry, Costco, you are definitely not my sponsor. And but don't buy them from Target. Don't buy them do not buy supplements from the drugstore. Most of them are filled with fillers. Most of them will have gums in them, things that aren't good quality. The reason why they can keep them cheaper is because they use, unfortunately, poor quality ingredients. I do not recommend anything that is bad quality. And it's really important because, there's so many parents these days, especially with kids with ADHD, that are looking for that natural supplement that's going to be the be all and end all. I'll tell you straight up, there's not one supplement that's going to get rid of ADHD symptoms. It is about reducing that load and restoring the body. And supplements can help restore the body. So if you're reducing the load at the same time as restoring the body, they can definitely be beneficial. But also make sure you get them from quality suppliers, because do not buy them on Amazon. What happens is you've got all these people that buy these supplements from other companies. They mark up the cost. They put them on Amazon. They store them in areas that aren't meant to store supplements. Like, supplements are meant to be stored in temperature controlled areas. And some of them, are stored in just a warehouse in Florida where it's super hot. You don't know what you're getting. You also don't know if it's near the expiration date. Okay. And you don't know if they're real. I've had clients that have bought some stuff from Amazon when they've bought it from another store originally, and they look completely different. And they went to actually contacted the company, and the company said it's obviously counterfeit because the look of them haven't changed.
Yeah, I do know that there's a lot of products on Amazon that are counterfeit. And again, this is, not my sponsor either. And, it's kind of impossible to tell the difference, to be honest with
It
you,
is.
right?
It is, unless you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a really good point. So when you say don't buy from Costco or the drugstore, so and maybe you have brand names, but or maybe you don't, I don't know, but like, where would you buy them from then?
Yeah, look, I think in the guide, I do actually list out where you can get them from, but you want to make sure that you're getting them from either direct from the manufacturer. A lot of the time you can just go on their websites and look at it. We have our own supplement store for supplements that we usually recommend, but at the same time, there's when you work with a practitioner, there are specialist supplement dispensaries that the practitioner will usually enroll you in when they're suggesting supplements, so they're stored correctly, so they're real, and their quality. And so just going off and buying them, unfortunately, from these other places is not that great. But the best case is, if you find a good quality supplement and you want to know it's real, just go direct to the manufacturer.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. And as we fight ADHD, I don't know if fight is the right word, as we cope with, as we help to heal our kids with it.
Yes.
I love that there's more than one strategy,
There is. Yeah.
and that's really hopeful.
Yeah.
And, you have lived this. And I think that's the difference between you and a lot of other people, is you have lived the serious dysfunction that
Mhm.
can come with ADHD with your own child. I have two, and it is no joke. And not only is ADHD difficult, it often comes with a friend. It often
Yes.
comes with a comorbidity, which could be Tourette's, it could be OCD, it could be oppositional defiance, it could be all sorts of
Mhm.
different things. And those just add to how hard it is. And so it's already hard. It may be hard, and I'm using, air quotes. It might be hard to change some of your diet. It might be hard to change and add in some supplements for your child, and maybe even for yourself too. Please, to limit screen time, to get your kids outside doing things and that sort of thing. But it's already hard. It's just a different
Yeah,
kind of hard. So
exactly.
yeah, I really appreciate everything that you have to offer. And ADHD Thrive Institute is your website, and you have just a wealth of information. You also do you have resources for parents. They can book a
Yes.
call with you. They can take on counseling and support from you as well. Is there anything you want to say about that? I'd love for you to talk about what you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, no, look, at the end of the day, I just want to see kids with ADHD thrive at home, at school, and in life. And it does not have to be that hard. Okay. I know how hard it can be. I
Yeah.
have lived it day in and day out. But when I was able to actually reduce my son's ADHD symptoms, now that he's not on any medication, hasn't been for years, and he's thriving, it's not as hard anymore. It's not
Mm.
hard anymore. He's a teenager, and so that brings its own challenges, but it's
Yep.
normal challenges. It's not terrible ADHD challenges. And so there is hope out there. But as you said, Robbin, like, we provide all these strategies. There are different ways that you can do it. It may seem hard, it may seem overwhelming, but all I say is Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
And you don't need to make all of these changes at once. It's just about that learning, that awareness, in knowing that there is hope. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to walk on eggshells or be on that emotional roller coaster. And so for me, I may not be able to help everybody, but just getting the message out there that there is hope is my most important message. And I think, like, for myself, that if someone does decide to work with me, we help them reduce ADHD symptoms naturally. Really, that's it. Everything that we're talking about today in the last podcast episode, plus, functional lab testing and things like that, that's what we do. But I know that that's not for everyone. And, but your kids can thrive, and it's just making those small little changes to make it easy, to make it doable. And then one day you turn around and you're like, oh, this is my normal life now. I don't even think about it. It's not hard anymore. And so you might go through short-term pain, but definitely for that long-term gain.
We can get used to anything. We're
totally.
moms. We can get used to anything. We got this. You got this. If you're listening, you can do this. And I just so appreciate the hope. I really appreciate the hope. And you know what? Where there is hope, there is excitement for the future. Because if there isn't hope, then you're dreading the future. You're worried about the future. You're scared about the future, and you parent out of fear instead of out of being empowered. So that's what I'm all about. So thank you so much for being here, Donna. I really appreciate you. I love talking to you, and this was just as exciting and interesting of a conversation as our last one was. So don't forget to get her guides that are in the parent toolbox. We have easy breakfast solutions for ADHD kids. That's from our previous episode. And then the 5 natural supplements for kids with ADHD is our other one. So thank you so much again for being here. It's ADHD Thrive Institute. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Robbin.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robbin McManne, and if you're enjoying this podcast, I would love it if you would share it with someone who you think needs to hear this message too. And please don't forget to subscribe. And if you like my work, I would be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. And if you like my content and want more, please visit my site, parentingforconnection.com, where you can find out more about my coaching, my courses, and all things parenting. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace, connection, and joy.